President Cyril Ramaphosa is now back on home soil. His presidential jet touched down at Waterkloof Airforce Base in Pretoria at around 7:25 this morning. Ramaphosa has made the decision to cut short an international trip after Eskom plunged the country into stage 6 power cuts over the weekend. Let's check in with Newzroom Afrika's politics editor, who is on the story for us, who joins us from just outside the Air Force Base this morning. That's Lukhanyo Calata. Lukhanyo, the president is back. Now what?
All right, Michelle. Yes, he is back. As you said, that his presidential jet touched down at about 7:25. And then a few minutes later, about 20 minutes after that, we saw his motorcade leaving the Air Force Base, Waterkloof, turning right at the set of robots that were unfortunately not working. And obviously we saw 3 traffic officers kind of commanding traffic at that point to obviously allow the president to turn right and then head off obviously to where he needs to be, probably to the union buildings. Michelle, what we know is that the president lands into a storm. When he left on last week, Wednesday, the country was grappling with stage 3, stage 4 power cuts. And then on Saturday, it was escalated to stage 5. And then on Sunday, it was stage 6. So obviously at that time, the president had met with his counterpart in the US, Joe Biden, on Friday, and then flew to the UK for the Queen's funeral yesterday. He was meant to get back to New York today to go and address the United Nations General Assembly, but obviously there were much more pressing matters down here at home, and that is why he's come back. He comes into the storm where the EFF is demanding that the entire board of Eskom be dismissed, that the CEO, Andre de Ruyter, as well as the COO, Jan Oberholzer, they too leave with that entire Eskom board. So as to whether or not the president is going to accede to the EFF's call to fire everybody, or at least the top executives and leadership of Eskom, that remains to be seen. We spoke to his spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, last night, and he was telling us that, look, the president will address the country, or he will at least respond to some of these issues as the matters unfold. So we don't know yet whether or not the president is going to call a family meeting, or at least address the country where, he responds to these critical issues at Eskom. It would be interesting, to speak to him to find out as to exactly what his game plan is. How is he going to lead the country out of this quagmire that we find itself in? Unfortunately, the president's office could only tell us last night that, the president will address the matter as things unfold. Michelle?
So he lands at 7:25 this morning, and ironically, his weekly newsletter lands, at least in my inbox, at 7:35 this morning. In the newsletter, he talks about why his trip to the US was so important. He talks about the 600 companies, American companies, doing business with South Africa. It's all sort of painting a picture of why it's so important that we get our energy crisis sorted, and we get it sorted as soon as possible. Of course, the president himself, Lukhanyo, has been part of the Eskom war room. Just a few months ago, in more recent history, he announced himself that independent power producers and a program involving IPPs would be sped up. The point I'm trying to make is that the president has been involved in trying to get Eskom back on its feet for many, many years. What's different this time around?
Michelle, it's actually been a decade. Remember, in 2012, when he was elected and appointed deputy president of the country by former President Jacob Zuma, Mr. Zuma made the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, the point person at Eskom, and said that he is the person that will lead us out of the problems that we are facing with Eskom. That was in 2012, Michelle. We are now sitting in 2022. And the problems at Eskom, instead of diminishing, they've escalated. For the first time, Michelle, we've had stage 6 power cuts, and all of those, the first one was in 2019. We're now in 2022, where stage 6 power cuts, I beg your pardon, are becoming a regular occurrence. So, under the president's watch, Eskom has become an even bigger problem. How does he address it, Michelle? We don't know. He's had 10 years to address this problem. And I don't see it improving anytime soon. Instead, what we saw from Eskom yesterday was an announcement that Eskom was going to put in place immediate steps to be able to purchase around 1,000 megawatts from independent power producers. But that's not going to be enough, Michelle. Stage 6 means that Eskom needs to shed about 6,000 megawatts from the grid. So how do you replace 6,000 megawatts with 1,000? The maths just simply doesn't add up. And obviously we don't know what the president's plan is, and he's not willing to share that with us. So the next few days and the next few weeks are going to be interesting, and we are, of course, going to pursue this matter, because we simply cannot live in a country, Michelle, where for 8 hours of a day we are without electricity. Michelle?
Absolutely. We say we are trying to tackle our unemployment crisis as well, and yet we can't keep the lights on. Lukhanyo Calata, thanks very much indeed for that update.